I know that all of you are really, really upset because this is your last class of the semester. You're supposed to act like that at least. It influences your grades. Again, I'm going to do it again. This is your last day of the class. Oh, good, good. There was an email I got yesterday about, that certain things, when I said apply it to your work, if you literally apply it to your work, you may not be able to share it with us, so change it. And if you are looking at some system and it's got 5 steps to it, make it 4 and call it A, B, C, and D, So you don't have to get the information exactly as it is. The key is not 2 things. One, I want to know when I look at this to see how you're thinking now and has your thinking changed. So how do you think through a system? And at what level of depth that you understand it? Because so that's what I'm looking for. More important is not what I'm looking for, it's what we can offer for you and what you're going to take. If I can just simply say, for me, make it A, B, and C, right? But if you go back and say, A is this, and B is this, and C is this, and you have analyzed something, I'm hoping what comes across for you is what possibly are issues at work that you need to resolve that other tools don't allow you to solve. You have operations research, and it can solve a problem for you, but it has to be self-explained. When I have statistics, I collect data, but it is, this machine, and let's look at the mean and the variance on that. It has to be there, right? Lean, here's the process. The process has to be laid out. This is the only course that you have in which it allows you to think beyond the basics. For example, and this is what I was looking at the other day. I have physical systems, I have informational systems, and I have intangibles. Because what I'm doing is, I'm going through all the 7 lectures again. I am rewriting them. So I have finished chapter 1. I'm going to go through chapter 2, 3, 4. And so what I'm going to send you is a set of modules that connects lean systems and all that to what it is, but through the example of emergency room from the beginning. So that would be in your notes and you can keep it for you. Is that okay? So it's taking me about a day or so to go back through and fix the system. So it's going to take me about maybe 10 days or so. By the middle of the month, I will forward this through to you. So you will have, using an emergency room, everything from the beginning basics to the end. When I was putting chapter 1 together again, this is what came across to me. When I look at this room here, describe this room to me. How do I describe this room? I can describe it.
Large square.
What is it?
Large square room.
Large square room. How else do you describe it?
Cool. She's
Happiest place on earth.
Cold is what? Physical, isn't it?
Yeah.
What is it?
The happiest place on earth?
Yeah, excellent, excellent.
It's like Disney.
Thought it was supposed to be sad day.
But until
What's
then,
that?
it's sad because it's the last day of the year. Bittersweet.
Right.
It's a classroom.
Huh?
Classroom or a
Learning
or a-
environment.
Yeah.
Classroom. What would that be? If I was to put it
Informational.
Information. Give me 1 or 2 more. Historical. Historical?
No, pictures. Pictures. Got the history of Oak Ridge. Yeah, that's information, right?
Is it because it's physical?
Information.
I'm gonna lay it out there. All right. Here is our weakness. If I said, how did this classroom serve us, where we typically kind of focus in on is what is the easiest for us, isn't it? What I physically see. What I see a classroom that's laid out in a U shape. I see a lot more chairs than we have students. I see lights, I see code, I see a large classroom, etc. down the line. I describe this classroom from a physical perspective. Do we typically do that at work or at home? But notice that if I described it, because this is the easiest to describe, then we can describe it from an informational perspective. Well, what is happening? Well, we share information. How do we share information? Well, we have a projector, which is again physical. What do? We have class lectures. We have people come and talk about case studies, etc. I can talk to you about information, but I cannot talk to you about information and how well I am projecting that information and you're receiving that information. I can again do what? Physical. Do I have a presentation? Yes, I do. Is it any good? We don't know, because the goodness of that presentation depends on what? Our ability to use this as a mechanism to be able to communicate with each other, for me to say, this is what I'm thinking, for you to receive it and say, well, yeah, I agree with you or I disagree with you, but I'm forming my own opinions. But was this a successful class or a semester is not only dependent upon the physical, it is not dependent only on the information, which is harder to judge, but it is dependent upon a lot of intangibles. What are the intangibles?
Things that are hard to put a measure on.
But what would be some of the intangibles?
I think one thing for me is, just building like the camaraderie, between fellow classmates and like building a bond.
Networking.
Well, that too, but like, like Joe and Brianna, they were like my teammates, last time, and it's like, yeah, we see each other in the hallways at work and be cordial with each other and, say hi and everything.
So is that important?
I think so.
What are other intangibles? I can tell you from my perspective, and then you tell me.
Motivation.
I have to ask myself the question, intangible. Do I really care about teaching? I mean, that's important. It's an intangible. I mean, do I go and prepare my lectures? Do I think about this class? Do I worry about how you think, or I don't? I'm not saying one way or the other, but isn't that intangible? That would influence the outcome and the function of this thing. Fair enough? What are other intangibles, do you think?
Motivation.
Effort.
Okay, motivation, effort. Which ones do you think? In analyzing this class, and again, we have to analyze it from what perspective? What is a system? A function, and elements. I use these elements, and I interconnect these elements to serve a function. So what is the function of this class? What is it that we're trying to manage? What is the stock that we're trying to manage at the highest level?
Increase knowledge.
Change your thinking. What is it? It's not education. Education is
It's our understanding of systems and how can we use tools that you've already presented or will
Right.
present.
Let me tell you what I am trying to do, and each professor that's coming after me may be slightly different. The ability for you to see systems in a dynamic way, to look at them and design these systems with safety, security, and efficiency in mind, and utilizing the optimal resources. So it is, my worry is not whether you have measured every single equation, is when you leave here, do you have a different mindset to impact society in a positive way? That's really the key of education, isn't it? How many equations? My God, I mean, go look it up in a book. You need to know what equations are there, what tools are there, and how to be able to use them. But do I really particularly care about how many of them do you have memorized? I'm more worried about when you go and leave this class, are you a better employee of your organization? And are you a better person in your community and in your society? And that doesn't make a difference where. It could be Little League, or it could be your church, or it could be anything, but do you serve those purposes well? That's a function, okay? Now, so we take that as a function. So education could be a component of getting us to that point. That is the stock that we manage. What controls that stock? This, or this?
Combination of the three.
Which one is the most important? Intangibles. I think, not necessarily that the physical is not important. Whether this class is cold or hot could make a little bit of difference. Right? How we communicate information is very important. But I think more than anything else is those intangibles that we talked about. Your motivation, your effort, and our caring about being able to share information and our ability to communicate. Now, I want you to take that. So if that's the case, when you design processes at work and analyze processes at work, what basis do you do it on? You're supposed to argue, say no.
Well, I would say mostly physical, but informational also, because depending on what your workload is, some of it may focus more on information than.
But I would agree with you, but the tools that you have been provided, the tools and set of tools, not only through this education, but in historically how you have been developed, okay, is all based on this. So how do you become a person, an engineer, that is robust unless you understand, and I would agree with you that we do look at information, but in context to the physical. This person and this person are talking, so what is it that they're talking about? But I don't have a lot of tools that I can think of that actually measures and looks at that information. All I know is information is being transferred. But we don't do this. So, does systems engineering, not that it is the silver bullet, start providing us some insight into this? And I'll bring an example. Resistance to change. Remember last time we were talking about resistance to change, or the fact, what is it called, when tragedy of commons. What was that? I don't remember. What was the tragedy of commons?
People using all the resources.
Without consequence.
So in society, we have problems that says, I have limited resources, right? But because I'm just one person and I don't think I'm going to have much of an impact, but I'm going to go ahead and use it anyway. But if many people use this resource is going to go away. That's an issue in society. That's an issue within organizations. That is an issue at home. So that's one issue. The other is resistance to change. That's an issue at home. That's an issue of society. That's an issue at work. Those are two things that are common in our society, in our thing. But if I was to look at it, does systems thinking allow me, because this would not allow me to look at what? Tragedy of commons. Would it? Maybe how many people are going in. It gives you a superficial view, maybe. With this, the intangibles. Okay, let's talk about what happened, last year? Was it last semester?
Depends on what you're asking.
When I said that I worked with you in the summer, and you said, no. Well, you didn't say no. You said no, you know, and I said, there were two things. I said, I worked with you in the summer, but I want you to do this. And you said no. And I said, if you said no, I'm going to say no. And therefore, that's why we have a lot of incompletes. Why did that happen? See, it's not important that that happened. Okay? Can I explain that from this perspective? Can I explain it from this perspective, or can I explain it from this perspective? Explain to me what happened.
I agree, but I would also say the middle one has something, because when those conversations have come up, I've yet to hear the same story from two different people. I think there was like 10 different communication pathways in that conversation.
But that's what's intangible. It was the perception.
Because I think what we spoke was the same. I mean, what I said, I can't remember what I said, but I said what I said. That didn't change. That fact didn't change. What you said, that fact didn't change. How we perceived it. And I thought to myself, to be honest, I said, if you act really, really angry and say, I don't care, you're going to change these people. If you let them suffer, then say, oh, why am I suffering now? Then you're going to get them to where you want. That was the idea. Was I truly upset at you? The answer is no. Did I fake it and say, oh, I'm going to kill them? Yes. Yeah, that was it. All right, now, I don't care. Explain to me why that happened from a systems perspective.
Well, from the attitudes, or
From a systems perspective.
well, one caused our attitude's A and your attitude's B. A caused B.
Oh, no, let's not use that. What was that?
From a systems perspective, I think we had different goals in mind.
What is the word? Let's not use goals.
Requirements.
Paradigm.
Paradigm shift, requirements.
Functions.
Stock.
Stock. Okay.
Our top stock was two different things. I can explain the resistance or what went on, not because we didn't like each other or anything like that, but I can explain it from a systems perspective. Okay? Why did you say that you didn't want to do it? What was the stock that you were managing?
Staying married.
And
Huh?
money.
Staying married.
Yes.
We're not getting a
Money for
divorce.
Employee hourly rate.
Okay, so let's think about this, okay? So what the stock that you were managing was what?
Time and company money.
Time and resources.
What was it?
Time and resources.
Fear.
Was it time?
Sanity. Still trying to.
Was it your happiness?
No, that's gone.
Because of the
Right.
I think you're right on that. I think it's something like happiness. The first semester that a lot of us have been back in school, everyone wanted to be done, be finished, last class.
I think, and see, I want you to understand, there is no judgment on the ethics of this. If you are going to resolve this issue, it is not a judgment of whether it was done or not done. It is the understanding of, if I look at it and say happiness, what does happiness depend upon? Joe, you said what? You want to stay married? Is that what you said? What does this class have to do with your marriage?
Well, it's time.
Watch this, watch this, stop. You were thinking, we're talking, you're thinking what? Stop.
So I guess it goes back to time,
because more time spent on classes, less time spent with family. And as you spend less time with family, your happiness level decreases. Your relationships start. So it's a loop.
She must really love you, because I've been out shopping.
Some people have the opposite. Do you see just what happened? He said that I am not in this class. This class somehow is a component of what is going to fulfill me or make me happy over time. I'm not sitting in this class because I don't have anything better to do on Friday. Okay? So it is your growth or your happiness, and this growth, this happiness is related to many, many different things, right? One of the things you did was growth. If we can get a master's degree and if I can do this, I may be able to improve the quality of my life. I'm just making this up. At the same time, it's a conflicting thing because of what he just said. Time. What is going to make me happy? My growth. What's going to make me happy? My family's what? Happy relationship. That family's relationship is dependent upon what stock? Time. What is growth now based on? Time. The feedbacks on those two things are exactly the opposite and conflicting. If I understand that, it is not a personal issue of whether we did it or not. Now, so there you go. And at that time, we chose what? We chose to work, or because you have been working throughout the semester, you said, I don't want to do something after the semester. So you switched from managing one stock to managing what? Another stock. Is that correct? So then why did we have a conflict?
I think it was a miscommunication of goals. Because I think that some people weren't saying that they couldn't do it. It's just that they didn't want to give a 4-hour presentation. Like there was more of a 1 hour would be okay. But the defiance was, there was a miscommunication about what people meant when they said, I don't want to do a 4-hour presentation versus
what I remember.
connection between the summer work and the presentation.
Really?
I heard 4 hours, 5 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then we were supposed to, I guess, have a group and
That's-
convince them,
I said,
educate them.
4 hours,
on
5
doing
hours.
it.
It was also miscommunication. It was accumulation of the presentation at work with these people, and it was unexpected. And we were going to have to get people that we had specifically named.
Supervisors.
So-
And in some cases, they had already had the meeting. It just was all of a sudden, all these things piled on after we had the
Operations research.
Yeah, but see,
The other
Again, I
obligations.
want you to understand, it's not operations research. It is not. You are managing something. You are managing time.
And there were some cranky spouses, I can attest to that.
Well, that's why you take them out on Friday evening and say, hey.
That was
There's
homework.
no-
No, you had to stay at home and do homework.
We work with you. You're having a beer, you say.
I'll send my kids to your house and see them if you get done.
I have actually taken work and gone out with Nina on a date.
I have too.
Seriously.
I wouldn't get a win for that. It should say you're not paying any attention to me.
I was too. You know. Okay, now, what was the stock that I was managing?
Our understanding, or our knowledge level, or our ability to
Coming back.
convince you of that, I guess, right?
Expanding the information from this class.
My ability, I think, was not that I didn't think that you did not know the material. The agreement that I have with ORNL or Y12, I don't have an agreement with Rubber Maid.
We didn't get that far.
Yeah. Was they're sending you here because we want to say it's not about what you have learned, it is how you become the mentors for others when you go back. That's the key. And I'm not sure at this moment that we have, to some extent, exceeded or succeeded on that or not. You have to remember that what you know, nobody cares. Unless it has an action and makes a positive statement, I don't care what you know, and you shouldn't care what I know. What you is not what is in my mind. It is either what I can transfer to you or you can transfer to me, or how we can make society better. That's all that matters. I mean, that's why we're here. And that's the key. So I want to see you in the role of being a mentor. Not somebody who's learning, but that transition from being a student to being a mentor. How many of you have mentored anybody at work? Really?
The issue I have sometimes is there's a very large resistance to change. And so even after you present something or do something, especially if something else comes up, something important comes up, it's just,
It is a futile task.
Yeah.
I mean, you're really, you know you're set up for failure already. You
I'm
really
not saying,
try.
I'm not saying I don't continue to try.
Yeah,
Or
no,
we
I
don't
understand
continue to
that.
do that. It's just that, that's the experience I have, is many times they go, wow, this is really neat, and then gone.
Well, we have been talking with Mark, and I wish that he has to be in the plant today. He called me last night. What we are discussing is, can we create for management a set of, not a semester, but a set of modules where they are aware of some of this stuff, not that they know the details of this stuff, so that when you are talking to them, they say, great idea. I don't know. But I don't know whether that's gonna go or not. It is something that at this moment, what's that?
I think it will.
Because the other group that we have a meeting with, December, Jack?
Yeah.
No. Who do you talk to at 112?
Oh, Rick Glass.
Okay, so we have a meeting with him, and we're including Mark Cook into that, because I don't want to do this and this. I want to be able to do one thing, so that we can, you are in line with, you're not the only ones out there, you are in line with other people. Is that okay? So why do you have so many incompletes? One, I haven't graded them, and I figured that I just push you to the limit and make you suffer. I'm admitting to that. It's a stop. Huh? So why did we have, what was it? Resistance to change, or resistance in our organization. Can we explain it? We can easily explain it. It's not that difficult to do, and we can, by understanding that, we can fix it. For example, what you said, you all thought it was 4 hours. I could have said 1 hour.
You would take it.
There's a video we can go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want that video back.
I'm pretty sure they've got it
I-
already.
I also
I'm
think
pretty sure
that,
it's needed already.
you know,
Did I really say 4 hours?
I have no idea.
Yes.
yes.
Really?
With all the people we listed that we
And we were just trying to figure out what the exact requirements are.
What is our stakeholder?
Because I have to know the requirements in order to be able to meet the,
And Bill Tyndall's a really busy guy.
So, he needs to understand systems. Hey, or leave.
Something else maybe. It was just one more twist in the semester of, I don't know that
I
anybody
know that.
understood
I
the
know that
project.
semester, and I don't
Throughout
want to
the-
mention it. There was a class that you were struggling with.
No.
Oh, okay, no, okay.
That-
Maybe.
Yeah.
That was a whole different dynamic. A big contributor, but what I'm talking about is the project you wanted for the end of the class. Maybe I'm the only one that's dumb, but I don't think any of us knew, and it seemed like every week where you talked about it, something changed. I felt like it changed all the way to the end. How could you have a project ready for the end of a class when you really didn't fully understand what the instructor wanted till the end of the class.
And that's true. I don't understand it myself.
Then how are we supposed to have it done?
But I think if you notice the following, with every class of mine, that includes undergraduate, graduate, or on the PhD, I would never write down explicit instructions for you to say what you need to do. I leave it up to you to interpret, because that's part of real life. If I was to write the instructions down, I would do it myself.
And that's the paradigm I mentioned earlier is
And that's
our student
and I do that on-
experience didn't.
And I
didn't
do
prepare
that
us
on
for that.
purpose, because it is for you to interpret, just like your managers come and tell you. How many of your managers ever wrote down and said, let me tell you, I want you to do this, step 1 is this, step 2 is this, step 5 is this. They simply say, hey, I think we have a problem there, go fix it.
But
And from week to week, it changes,
But they do give me a requirement.
yeah, there's a difference
which
between the
is the
steps.
implementation of lean in that process.
I mean, especially with DOE, I have specific requirements I have to meet, and even if they don't even make sense.
So,
It's true.
so if there's an obligation at the end of the class to give a presentation to 5 people for 5 hours, if you're not gonna give us the stepwise on how to get there, that's fine. But we needed to know that that was the expectation at the end, that we needed to be able to
Well, that was.
present the information
But
to
that was
the
the,
group.
I think, going back to his point, that was a change in the last week that I thought, understanding what Y12 wants. Why does 12 doesn't want somebody to get an A, B, C on a class and go away? They want to be able to see the transition of this. So I would agree with that. That was, in the last week, I thought I said, this is something that we should be able to do.
And then
Yeah.
you want us, to figure it out and interpret the requirements and move forward, which is great. That's valuable. But when we sat down at Jack Case and we talked about our projects from the previous semester, they were all wrong.
They were not wrong.
Well,
They were not at the level of depth that I want. I don't, for example, I don't want 3 pages that describes a problem that doesn't describe a problem to me. Your job is to figure out the right depth. You cannot just give me 3 pages and say, this is my project. I don't care about that project. I want to know the details of how you designed it. I don't want to know what the problem was and here's the solution and nothing in the between. So that is an expectation that I have, and I think I can tell you that that is either my strength or my weakness. I do that on purpose. I will never, ever send any assignment to you that says, here are my instructions. It is your job to figure out what. That's what you do. What the scope of the project is going to be, what the depth of the project is going to be, and what the answers are. Because if I had to describe all of that, let me tell you, as a manager that manages 30, 40 people at UT, I'd rather do it myself. Now, so that's not the issue. The issue is any conflict can be looked at and solved. Now, talk to me about the tragedy of commons and how systems thinking would help you with that.
It's a situation where you've got a common resource, like a cow field, and people are able to graze their cattle on it as much as they want. It's a free resource, so they'll continue to pile on if they have no cost to consuming that resource.
So how would you describe it? So I have this stalk of cabbage or grass on it or whatever it is. Can we describe that in terms of loops?
Feedback?
It's a reinforcement.
There's 2, reinforcing, right? Reinforcing does what? Increases the amount of land or grass or whatever it is. And then we have what? The other loop, the balancing loop. What is the balancing loop? Or takes away from that, right? In the case of tragedy of commons,
Too strong.
how would you describe it?
The balancing loop is
multiple balancing loops all separate, operating individually. All right, there's nothing tying them together that, so, you know.
So that if I have multiple that are uncontrolled, I can either put a lot of little loops, or I can put one large loop, okay? And that, what is happening to that loop with regard to the reinforcing loop?
The reinforcing loop can't keep up. It's not adequate enough to handle the balancing loop.
That's it. So you see that by looking at key components such as stock, okay? So what stock? And it's just not a stock we're talking about. What are we talking about? We're talking about layers of connected stocks, right? That's how we describe it. And then when you're looking at tragedy of commons, it is possible that by looking at the imbalance, so one is the imbalance, the second is the timing. So one, I have a lot of usage of this, but not a lot of usage of this. But the second component is what? The amount of time that it takes from the time I do something to do what? Notice this, when I send a cow out to eat it, it's what? Almost immediate, isn't it? To grow grass is,
See, yeah,
So you gotta break down the cow poop, gotta wait for
It's
rain.
a delay. It's a delay in the loop, yeah.
do you see that?
But the nice part is it'll correct itself eventually. So, you know, it's not uncontrollable, right?
Which part?
Cows will die.
The system will correct itself. So, yeah, you take away your resource, then cows are gonna not have a place to graze. They'll move them out, or they'll die, and then the grass will come back. So eventually it'll fix itself.
Which is, again, going back to chapter 1, what does systems say? Systems are adaptive, changing, right? And over a period of time, they will change themselves. So do you see that when you are looking, to me, the most interesting class of all the classes, now if you say, this is my bias, was this class. To me, because it provided not a technical tools, what did it provide? A fundamental way of thinking.
Paradigm
That-
shift.
Huh?
Paradigm shift, right?
Paradigm shift. And then that is then supported with statistics and operations research and lean. Then you can say, hey, if there's an imbalance, I can go to lean. If I need to model something, I can go to operations research. If I want to look at data, I can go to statistics. So you have a tremendous amount of depth. And the mistake that we made was that this should happen in your first class semester. And we should have doing it so that when we're doing this for a new cohort that's coming in, we're going to do the systems class first. And then we're going to say, by the way, now, you see this balance between the loops? Let's go to lean. Let me show you how all of this works.
I really enjoyed this class with project management. I thought there was quite a bit of overlap in the broad thinking.
In fact, he
using the
uses,
tools.
he traditionally uses the same book.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now, tell me how you have changed. Let's go to my stock. Tell me how you have changed. If the stock that we manage is your ability, not what you memorize, but the ability to make an impact, what has changed in you?
For me, it's identified things that I didn't feel were as important in my systems, and I realized through some of the techniques we learned that they're actually the most important.
Such as?
Like when we did the QFD model, I went through and looked at every stock I've got in my maintenance planning process, and it graded out that planners were the most important resource. And they're not in my organization, so it's easy for me to overlook. But when I think about it and I start looking at the feedback and look how maintenance is conducted at the plant, it's easy to see that they're the most important. I've become a lot more involved with them at work and learning what they do and how we can help work together to make both of our jobs easier.
And I'm glad you said that because nobody connects systems engineering to QFD. It was just after I read that chapter and I said, okay, so what do you tell the students to do? You just can't go say, hey, there it is. Requirement done, you have to give them a tool to do that. Yes, sir.
it's changed my vocabulary. Like I actually had a conversation this past week about tragedy of the commons. We have, I'm serious. My director was curious of why there are things that are out of control, and it's because the other people in the plant that are using them don't have to have that. There is no feedback for them. It's free to them, so they take advantage of it. And he started thinking about it that way and said, "Wow, is there a way we could change that?" And we talked about ways that we could actually make it so that they actually feel that impact. And maybe because I'm thinking about utilities especially. If you're running your house, your electricity or whatever, most people here probably set their thermostat to reasonable levels, so because
That's correct.
they have to pay the bill at the end of the day. Well, if you don't have to pay the bill at work,
You go to a hotel.
it's free. It's absolutely free. I can turn it up to 80 degrees if I'm really cold.
Should we tell them?
We were just talking about that.
Go ahead.
So Rupi and his wife, did a big undertaking of, remodeling, a church for their temple, for the Sikh community. And it was a huge undertaking. And now that it's all done, all the congregation who, actually nobody saw during the course of the last probably, 6 or 8 months that it's taken to do this, they're all there now and messing with the thermostat.
Everybody, I mean, here's the thing, everybody is messing with the thermostat. And you got an 8,000 square foot structure, right? Watch this. If you put that on 85, can you imagine, and this has got ceilings that are, like in a church, what are the ceilings, like 30 feet high or
Yeah.
something like that?
I'll tell you how I fixed one of those at another place I worked. We took thermostats that are battery powered and just put sticky tape on the back of them and put them on the wall. And if people think they have control over it, they're okay with it. It has no connection to the system.
Hotels.
I'm absolutely positive. I mean, you could come back by and go, "Hey, is that working out for you?" And oh, it's great. I can control it now. It's fantastic. And it didn't do anything.
But I had the other one, I don't know, the box church.
See, that's what I was, because at the end of the day, if I had the temperature running at 85 over the winter, I would assume that I would have what, $1,000 bill or $1,500 bill or something like that per month.
Hotels have been doing that for years. Their HVACs.
So,
When your kids.
I don't know. Did I forget my kid in the car?
So where did you get those?
You can buy just a standard Honeywell or whatever
For like $10
thermostat, and you're supposed to wire them in, but they just don't work.
Yeah, yeah.
It
But they
just
still
it
show
just
the
looks like you can change the number.
It does work until you have a very adamant customer, and I have one. She went and got not one, but 2 thermostats, or thermometers, and put in her office,
Oh,
and
yeah.
Jason's office beside her. So be careful. Yeah.
but again,
What is
I
done, done?
think going back to you, I've seen that because if I can increase the temperature for a degree or 2 or 3, well, it's not much of a cost to me, correct? But if everybody's doing it, the resources that are paying for that structure are going to be depleted fairly soon. Yes, ma'am.
I actually really enjoy the tools that we also learned last semester, such as the value stream mapping, because I just had an epiphany. That works when we lay down the actual process and share that with everybody and say, hey, we have to do this, otherwise this is gonna go away. Just by sharing that, we're actually changing the intangible understanding of the process. I mean, that's the feedback that they needed to be able to once you see it, you get it. Like if you don't see it, you don't believe it.
Yeah, I think it's not that those tools are not there, and those tools have no value. But I think that we can lift them up a little bit and use them within this different thinking process. Let me kind of tell you, we were there yesterday at 8 o'clock. We were making a presentation to Fort Sanders Regional Leadership. So there are about, all of the leaders at Fort Sanders were there, and so there's about 40 or 50 of them. Guess, and I'm going to present this case to you, and you tell me how you would look at it. They say to you that patient care is the most important thing to them. Fair enough? So is that what they said? Patient care is the most important thing. How would you analyze to see whether patient care at Fort Sanders is the most important thing or not? Not by words, but by actions. How would you do that?
Create a causal loop.
Let's say that again.
Create a causal loop diagram.
Tell me a little bit more.
You'd have to measure the correct metric.
With how their system works, what's feedback loops are pushing what stocks. And seeing if they all feedback to the patient care, or if they actually feedback more towards the bottom line.
Here's the thing. They only care about the patient care within their department. That's what came out. If you were in X-ray, all I care about you is not you as a patient, but how you are in X-ray. And so if I have a whole bunch of people that only care about that patient from their perspective, my question to you is, from a perspective of stock, what am I measuring? My stock in my department. What am I measured on? Number of X-rays I've done. I don't know. Let's assume that. Then I really am not taking care of my patient, am I? My job is to run what? Go through X-ray as quickly as possible. How do you take care of it now? And by looking at that from a assistant's perspective, you can actually judge to see if you really care about patient care or not. I'm going to ask you this question from assistant's perspective. Do you really care about what you do? What is your function? Your stated function.
Are you asking from the organization standpoint or the parts of the job that?
Your organizational perspective. Your organizational perspective. What do you do? What is your what do you do?
Yeah.
We maintain the nuclear deterrence. I mean, if you're talking about from the whole organizations, but I will say that we're very similar to the hospital in that each organization typically is about blinders on their own goals and own function.
There you go. So is it possible, and I'm just going to ask this, is it possible that if I am going to safely secure the nuclear deterrence, let's assume, so we're talking about White Cloud, not operational rubber. Does each department do its thing and increase the safety and security, or does it conflict with each other?
You can do both. I mean, it does, you see that every day, on both ways.
Why does it go both ways? If your mission is the safety of weapons, why is there a conflict?
There's a disconnect. There's no,
There's no systems thinking.
well, yeah, I mean, it's just, they don't realize how their system reacts with it. They put boundaries on their system and they're within their boundaries.
All right.
I think a lot of people are afraid to take any type of risk also, or lack of wanting to take any accountability for things. So people just put extra, they'll have something happen and then they'll just, add, 10 more, steps to go back and verify and check and, additional procedures or verifications or whatever it may be, because nobody's willing to take a risk or accept responsibility.
Right.
And you have another player too. You have the management that comes in for the contract for their bottom line is to make money as well. It's not really in line with the nation's goal.
Do you see how this would help? one more question and then we'll shift. Do you have any conflicts at home? Say yes, just make it up.
You learn just to avoid those. Just avoid them. It's better that way.
No.
If she's
We're not
always
going to
right,
avoid
no.
it.
That's right. Yeah, there's no conflict there.
I want you to tell me, now you don't have to really tell me. You have to tell me what is the conflict? Why does the conflict exist? And from a systems perspective, how are you going to resolve the conflict? Does anybody want to volunteer?
Are we talking about at home or work?
Oh.
No, there's no conflicts at home. I already told you. We're good.
Who has a conflict at home?
We all do. There's some misaligned goals.
What is a conflict?
I don't know if I really want to go specifically in
Make
it.
it
but
up, fake it.
Time, it would be one. Time between me working 40, 50 hours a week, coming home and doing this the rest of the weekend, between that and trying to take care of the kids, there is no time for me and my wife. Period. There are times where we hardly even see each other. And it becomes your relationship
Okay.
is
What is the stock that you're managing?
it's time. It's what she calls quality time.
Romance.
Huh?
Happiness, love, whatever.
What are you managing?
Tangible.
What is she managing?
Hostility.
I'm not saying that on camera.
This is not going well.
I'm trying to manage my time as best I can. She sometimes tries to manage my time also, but it's not.